welcome to another wine tasting. Just before I post the announcement this afternoon that we're going into level 3 next week, we're of course working through plans at Glengarry around that, but for this week it's the same for us. So we are delivering with online orders via contactless delivery, and we're full steam ahead with that. So if you need to place an order before the weekend, do get that in ultra quick so we can get that out to you. Next week we will be adding to our services and adding click and collect, and we'll have details out shortly on how that's going to work. Right, back to the much more exciting thing of tonight's wine tasting. Now, really cool. I've got 2 wines here that you won't have seen before, and in fact they're not available on our website yet, but they will be towards the end of the week, perhaps beginning of next week, because the container is here and it's on its way to Auckland. So it's very exciting. The other wine is in stock right now. But before I get into the wines themselves, we're talking about a winery called Chateauneuf-du-Pape, a region called Chateauneuf-du-Pape. We're talking about a winery called Mont Redon, a little bit tongue-tied tonight, but we're talking about Mont Redon. So Mont Redon are located in Chateauneuf-du-Pape. So Chateauneuf-du-Pape is a village in the Rhone Valley, and it's not far from Avignon. And Avignon, of course, is where the Papal Palace is, and Chateauneuf-du-Pape was the summer home of the Pope. And the area around there, it's got very distinctive soil types. In fact, there's 3 different predominant soil types. But one of the things that strikes you as you drive into this village is the wonderful big round pebbles that sit on the surface that are really important for maintaining the heat. And that, together with the low-trained bush vines of Grenache, makes this a region that produces outstanding Grenache-based wines. There's actually 13 permitted grape varieties in Chateauneuf-du-Pape. Little fun fact there. Not a lot of producers that actually grow and vinify all 13. But the producer we're looking at tonight, Mont Redon, they do in fact that. They have all 13 and they actually do vinify all 13 as well. So Mont Redon, it's a property that was established in 1842. It's one of the oldest Chateauneuf-du-Pape properties. In fact, vines were actually found at Mont Redon back in Roman times. So it's a very old property. It is the largest wine producer in Chateauneuf-du-Pape with 165 hectares of land, and they've got 100 of those under vine. Like Glengarry, it's a 4th generation business, and it's one that's very much focused on the environment. And they've done a number of really cool things recently that I just wanted to share with you. One is that they've built their own purifying station where all of the waste from the vineyard, the cellar and the chateau itself are actually treated biologically before being by being drained on a bed of reeds, and it's quite an elaborate process, but then they reuse all of that. So they're one of the first domains to both treat their waste and also recycle. They also have natural air conditioning in the winery, which is really cool. So they've got these underground cellars, and there was actually a passage in the cellars that their grandfather had used to drain water from the plateau to feed the wells. So a very old passage underneath the vineyards. And what they've done is they've extended it and connected it with the open air to create an draft that actually naturally cools the cellars. So the entire cellars and winery are at a constant temperature of 11 degrees, and that's all done through this natural air conditioning. Now, moving on from the natural sort of side of it to perhaps a bit more mechanical, and what they do also have is they have an optical sorter there. So an optical sorter, fantastic machine, but essentially the berries come in, they go along a little conveyor belt, and then a picture is taken of them. And if the berry meets then the specifications that the vineyard has decided for what a good berry is going to look like, it continues its journey. If not, then a little shot of air will push that berry and it will go away. So they do use that in 2 of the cuvées that we're going to look at tonight. So that's a little bit about Chateauneuf, a little bit about Mont Redon. What we're actually going to start with though is a wine that's not from Chateauneuf-du-Pape, and it's actually not labelled Mont Redon, but it is made by Mont Redon. Now, if you've been a Glengarry customer for a while, you'll know Rheator Côte de Provence Rosé. Well, I hate to be the breaker of bad news, but the estate and the grapes from that property are now going to be used by a different label, and essentially Rheator is no longer. So, sad news, but the good news is that Mont Redon, who made and distributed Rheator, have a new Côte de Provence. And this is what it looks like. I'll just give you a view there of the label. So it's called Saint Max. And Saint Max, the name actually refers to one of the first bishops in the area who came in, and it was around the 1st century AD. So that's where the name comes from. The sort of nautical take here refers to the fact that he came into the shores south of where the vineyards are. Now, the other really cool thing before we get on to the wine itself is if you have a little look at the back label here, very, very cool back label, you'll see a little Glengarry logo there. And that's really cool. Whenever you see that, that is something that Glengarry has selected and imported and sells directly to you. So very, very exciting. So the wine itself, let's just have a little look at it. It is very, very similar in its production to how Rheator was made. In fact, it's exactly the same person making it, and it's the same grape varieties, and he's made it, set out to make the same style. And the person who's making it is Pierre Fabre, and Pierre is the current generation leading Mont Redon. So if we have a little look at it, it's wonderfully pale in colour, as you could imagine. And the other thing with it is this is a 2019. And certainly for me, this is the first 2019 Côte de Provence that I've seen on the market. So it's very exciting. So if I just give that a bit of a swirl there. Yeah, it's fantastic. I think although it's got a little bit cooler outside, if you want a glass of wine that you take one sniff of and it takes you back to the height of summer, this will do it. So just have a little taste of it there. Wonderfully dry, but it has an incredible weight to it. And one of the things they do with this wine is there's actually 3 months of lees stirring.
Someone's asking what are the varietals in it?
So I'll come to the varietals in a minute. Thanks for the question on that. So the lees stirring, the lees is the dead yeast cells, and they're used to actually stir into the wine just to give it a bit of a creaminess and a bit of complexity to it. And in terms of the varieties, we're looking at Cinsault and Grenache being the predominant grape varieties in this wine. But lovely dry style, and when it does arrive in store, which we're not in store, online to sell to you, it will be around sort of $24.99. So that'll probably be next week that we start seeing that, and we'll certainly come out to let everyone know as soon as it's in store. So the next wine that I'm going to look at is actually Mont Redon's Chateauneuf-du-Pape. So we'll give you a little view of the label there. So that's that one. So this is the 2016, and I'll just move my rosé out of the way, and we'll go ahead and pour a little bit of that whilst I have a chat about that. So this is the one that is in stock right at the moment. And this one here, this is from the excellent 2016 vintage. Oh, the vintage is absolutely marked by this concentration and intensity of the fruit. 2016, 2017, both exceptional vintages in the Rhone. In fact, they've had a string of really, really good vintages recently. The difference, if you're sort of looking at 16, 17, and we do have some 17 Côte de Rhones in stock at the moment, so interesting comparison, is I think for me with the 16, there's a real density, a real richness, a real concentration to the wines. Whereas the 17, I find the acidity a little bit fresher, so you tend to get a more sort of lively characteristic to them. So the 16s it's the density of them, but then there's also this sort of lush, plush nature to the 16s, which is really attractive. So in terms of this wine and how it was made, it is 50% in oak and 50% in stainless steel. And it is 60% Grenache, 30% Syrah, only 8% Mourvedre. Mourvedre didn't have a entirely happy time in 2016, and then they've got a couple of other varieties in it which they choose to keep to themselves. There are only tiny amounts in it. So this wine actually comes off 3 of the different terroirs that Mont Redon have. So off the area that has the pebbles, and off the area that has the sand, and the area that has the chalk. So it is very much their chateau blend, if you like. What they do though is, although it is, and you're about to see there's another Chateauneuf-du-Pape they have, which they've introduced for the first time from 2016, although this is essentially their estate or their main Chateauneuf-du-Pape, the selection criteria is very specific. So it comes off the 3 different soils. It then, firstly, after it's gone through malolactic, what they do is they taste all the different batches and they take out the portions that are the weakest at that stage and put them aside to go into a bulk blend, which they will sell off as finished wine as Chateauneuf-du-Pape, but it will not make it under the Mont Redon label. So that's the first part of the selection process. Then what they'll do after racking is, then what they'll do is they'll age the wine, so half in oak and then half in stainless steel. And they'll leave it there, and then after racking, what they will do is they'll look for 2 more selections. They'll look for the wines that just haven't risen to the quality that they're looking for after the aging in oak. And they'll also look for the ones that are just too different. Sorry, we have a visitor in the side here, my little cat. Hopefully she'll come and actually grace us in the middle of the camera, but not at this stage. She's intending to take the artwork off the walls to a way of getting my attention. Back to the wine. So you've got the selection that happens after malolactic, then you've got the selection that happens after racking, and there's 2 selections at that stage. The ones that are not good and the ones that are too different. So the wines that just, in adding them into the blend, are not going to make something that's harmonious. Now, in this particular year, we're just going to grab her so she doesn't kill the artwork. Oh, right, she's on the ground now. We'll leave her there. So in this particular year, in 2016, only 50% of what they started with ended up as their Chateauneuf-du-Pape. So huge amount of selection for what is essentially, if you like to put it this way, their entry-level wine. But let's face it, this is nothing about entry-level with this wine. So if I have a little bit of a look at it, as I said before, it's got that wonderful intensity. Incredible concentration on the palate. And then it's got these beautiful sort of crushed strawberry characters from the Grenache. It's got the lovely sort of earthy savoury-ness from the Syrah there, and then just sort of a sweet line of fruit through it as well. The length is, it just goes on and on. It's just been evolving as I've been talking to you. Very, very special wine, and one that will definitely age. In fact, we were intending at this time to have a visit from Mont Redon and to try some older wines, which we're hoping to do in the future. So the next wine to have a little look at, this one is one that, this is the first year that they've produced it. So we're very, very lucky to have this, and this will be arriving, as I said, next week. So this is Plateau. So Plateau, I'll just pour that there. So Plateau is grapes that have only come off the plateau, so only off the area that has the pebbles. 100% destemmed and optically sorted, and so was the other Chateauneuf-du-Pape that I had a look at as well. They then did the extraction by pigeage, so with their feet, and for the 2016 vintage, about 70% of it went into new barrels, and then the rest into 1 to 2 year old barrels. With this one, 40% Syrah and 60% Grenache. So no Mourvedre went into the 2016 blend. So as I said before, Mourvedre, it didn't do that well in 2016, so they decided to leave it out of the blend. They do tell me that it will definitely be in the 2017. So what they did was checked the wine after 12 months in oak. And then at that stage, they did cull a very large amount of it, in fact, about half of it, and moved it either into the Chateau blend or moved it into their bulk blend, and then left the final blend together in tank for another 12 months. So it's had a long period of aging before it's got to us. So I'll have a little look at that. I'm very excited to try this. I tried it last year at the winery, but haven't tried it since it arrived. It's interesting. It's very, very different to the cuvee that I tried before, which was, you know, jumping out of the glass, was just so immediately approachable. This one is screaming to me the quality of what I'm about to taste. It's quite restrained at the moment. I think this is going to need time. Wow. That's an absolute showstopper. I don't quite know what to say. I'm a bit blown away by that wine. It's got everything. I mean, the balance is impeccable. The tannins are there for sure. The concentration, it's got incredible richness of fruit. And then it just explodes into this beautifully poised wine. Incredible Chateauneuf-du-Pape. It has been sent out for some reviews already, and it doesn't surprise me at all, having tasted it now, that I think the lowest it's got is 95 out of 100, and it sort of goes upwards from there. Limited quantity, as you can imagine, and it is going to be around the $200 price point. But in terms of the world of fine wine, a wine of that quality at that price point, relative to the world of fine wine, it's pretty good value. So those are the 3 wines tonight. I hope you've very much enjoyed learning about them, and for all of those people out there that are fans of Rhéator, Côte de Provence, and are now nervously sitting there waiting to see whether St. Max is actually as good, I can assure you, you're going to be very, very pleasantly surprised. And for anyone serious about collecting Chateauneuf-du-Pape, you need both of these in your cellar. Absolute must-haves. So thanks, guys. Been great taking you through those wines tonight. We do have these tastings every night at 6 o'clock during the week, and we are going to be continuing these through next month as well. So we're about to put a new lineup up on our website for that as well. So hope you're staying home, stay safe, and we'll see you again next week. Cheers.